high in the emerald canopy of the great forest. Where ancient trees stretched toward the clouds and vines tangled like nature's own highways, there lived a clever young monkey named Kito. He was small for his age, with bright golden brown fur, expressive amber eyes, and a tail that could grip branches as surely as his hands. But what truly set Kito apart was his mind always questioning, always curious, always seeking new solutions to old problems. Kito lived with his troop in the tallest fig tree in the forest, a magnificent giant that had stood for hundreds of years. The tree provided everything the monkeys needed: sweet figs to eat, strong branches for sleeping, and leaves that formed a protective roof against rain and sun. But the great forest had a guardian, or perhaps a tyrant, depending on who you asked. His name was Gale, and he was the wind. Gale was ancient and powerful, sweeping through the forest whenever he pleased. When he was gentle, he brought cooling breezes and scattered seeds to help new trees grow. But when he was angry, and he was often angry, he roared through the canopy with terrible force, bending trees, ripping away branches, and making life miserable for every creature who made their home in the heights. The monkeys had learned to fear Gale's moods. When the wind began to rise, they would huddle together in the thickest part of the fig tree, clinging to the trunk, and waiting for the storm to pass. They had done this for generations. It was simply how things were. But Kito was not satisfied with how things were. One morning, after a particularly fierce windstorm had kept the entire troop awake all night, Kito sat on a high branch watching the forest below. The wind had knocked down dozens of branches, scattered fruit everywhere, and even toppled a smaller tree. The older monkeys were exhausted and irritable. "Why do we just accept this?" Kito asked his grandmother, Maya, the wisest monkey in the troop. "Accept what, little one?" Maya replied, grooming his fur with patient hands. "The wind, Gale. Why do we let him control our lives? Why do we hide and cower every time he decides to have a tantrum?" Maya smiled sadly. "Because he is the wind, Kito. He is more powerful than any of us. You cannot fight the wind." "Maybe not fight," Kito said thoughtfully, his tail curling and uncurling as he pondered. "But maybe outsmart." The older monkeys laughed when Kito announced his intention to challenge Gale. "You cannot outsmart the wind," they said. "He is everywhere and nowhere. He is invisible and unstoppable. You are just a small monkey." But Kito's best friend, a young female monkey named Asha, with quick hands and an adventurous spirit, believed in him. "I think you should try," she said. "At least someone is trying something instead of just complaining and hiding." Kito spent days observing the wind. He watched how it moved through the forest, how it bent the trees, how it created patterns in the leaves and grass below. He noticed something interesting. The wind was powerful, yes, but it was also predictable. It followed certain paths, avoided certain obstacles, and always took the route of least resistance. An idea began to form. Kito gathered vines, leaves, and flexible branches. He wove them together in a pattern he'd observed in spider webs, a design that didn't resist force but redirected it. He worked for days, while the other monkeys watched with curiosity and skepticism. "What are you building?" Asha asked, helping him weave a particularly long vine. "A gift for Gale," Kito said with a mysterious smile. "And a trap." When his creation was complete, Kito climbed to the very top of the fig tree, higher than any monkey usually ventured. There, in the exposed upper branches, he installed his invention, a complex network of woven vines and leaves, arranged in spiraling patterns around the tree's crown. That very evening, Kito felt the familiar stirring in the air that meant Gale was approaching. The older monkeys immediately began their usual routine, huddling together in the lower branches. But Kito climbed to the top and waited. Gale arrived with his characteristic fury, roaring through the canopy with enough force to strip leaves from trees. He approached the fig tree, expecting to buffet it as he always did. But when he struck Kito's woven network, something unexpected happened. Instead of resisting the wind's force, the spiral patterns caught it and redirected it. The wind spun around the tree in controlled channels, losing its destructive power. The force that should have battered the branches instead flowed harmlessly around them, transformed from chaos into a strange, whistling harmony. For the first time in living memory, the wind spoke in words the monkeys could understand. "What is this?" Gale's voice rumbled through the branches, more curious than angry. "What trick have you played on me, little monkey?" Kito stood on the highest branch, his tail wrapped securely around it, facing the invisible presence of the wind, with more courage than sense. "Not a trick, Great Gale," Kito called out. "A conversation. You've been shouting at us for generations. I thought it was time someone taught you to sing." The wind seemed to pause, swirling around the tree in confusion. "Sing. I am the wind. I roar. I rage. I blow where I will." "Yes," Kito agreed. "And you're very good at it. But you're so busy being powerful that you never noticed you could be beautiful too." The spiral patterns in Kito's creation began to hum and whistle as the wind moved through them, creating an ethereal music that drifted through the entire forest. It was unlike anything anyone had ever heard, the pure voice of the wind, channeled into melody instead of chaos. Gale fell silent, listening to his own voice transformed. I never knew I could sound like this," the wind whispered. And for the first time, his voice held wonder instead of anger. "You can be powerful and beautiful at the same time," Kito explained. "You don't have to choose, but when you're only powerful, you hurt the very forest you're part of." "We're all part of the same forest, Great Gale. Even you." The wind considered this, swirling gently around the tree. The other monkeys, hearing the strange music, emerged from their hiding places and climbed upward, marveling at what they heard. "You did not try to fight me," Gale observed. "You did not try to stop me or block me." "I couldn't," Kito admitted honestly. "You're the wind. You're stronger than any monkey could ever be. But I could understand you. I could watch and learn and find a way to work with you instead of against you." "You used my own nature against me," Gale said. But there was admiration in his voice now, not anger. "You turned my strength into something else." "I turned your strength into what it always could have been," Kito corrected gently. "Music, beauty, partnership." From that day forward, everything changed in the Great Forest. Kito worked with Gale to create more spiral patterns throughout the canopy, not to trap the wind, but to dance with it. The designs channeled Gale's power in ways that actually helped the forest, dispersing seeds more effectively, cooling the hottest areas, and creating air currents that help birds fly more easily. Gale still had his moods. He was the wind, after all, and winds must blow. But now, when he swept through the forest, he remembered the small monkey who had taught him that power without wisdom is just noise, and that true strength lies in knowing when to roar and when to sing. The other creatures of the forest marveled at the change. "How did you do it?" they asked Kito. "How did you defeat the wind?" "I didn't defeat him," Kito would always reply, sitting on his favorite branch with Asha beside him. "You can't defeat forces of nature, but you can understand them. You can work with them." You can find the place where their strength and your cleverness meet, and create something better than either could make alone. And on quiet evenings, when Gale blew gently through the spiral patterns scattered throughout the canopy, the entire forest would fill with the most beautiful whistling music, a constant reminder that intelligence and understanding can transform even the most fearsome opponent into an ally. Grandmother Maya would often sit with Kito in those peaceful moments and say, "You were right, little one. We spend so many years hiding from the wind that we never thought to listen to it. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting or fleeing. Sometimes it's understanding." Kito would smile and watch the leaves dance in the patterns he'd created, proving once and for all that you don't have to be the biggest or the strongest to change the world. You just have to be clever enough to see solutions where others see only problems, and brave enough to try something new when everyone else says it cannot be done. And that is the story of the monkey who outwitted the wind not by fighting it, but by teaching it to sing.